Hey, Arthur. Who's that shirtless hunk of meat? Oh, you left. You left
Yeah,
him. You left
I was
the highlight of my gameplay experience with Dying Light so far. How could you do
I
that?
was intimidated by his masculinity, of which there is much
Yeah,
in this game.
I don't blame you. We're checking out Dying Light, as you can tell, because we're parkouring just so right.
Yes.
I gotta be honest, Dying Light has kind of fallen off my radar a little bit. I remember getting very excited about it the when it was announced, because that parkour did look so tight. But I don't know. I guess I got busy. Can you give me sort of a rundown of what we're seeing here?
I mean, it had a couple good E3 showings and people got interested, and then January happened and everybody forgot about it. But yes, this is Dying Light. If you've played Dead Island
Yeah.
and really want more of Dead Island, man, have I got a game for you.
Now I've heard that it sort of it deviates from the occasionally crooked path that Dead Island set out on in terms of mobility and stuff like that. I guess it's a fair comparison, right? Because Techland done did this one as well.
Yeah.
But what is what's the deviation? Obviously, the movement is a lot more of an emphasis.
Right. So I think that the big changes from the Dead Island formula is a more sophisticated means of navigating the world, obviously with the parkour and some other stuff that you'll see that I got, which will come up in the video eventually. But also the combat is simpler. The analog combat that I think a lot of people liked in Dead Island is not in the game anymore. It's much simpler.
Is it more hack and slashy? What do you mean by simpler?
Yeah, I mean, you have weapons and you swing them. There's not a lot of strategy to it. Eventually, I got hit by a zombie. Eventually, you can get additional ways to swing your weapons, but it's all very static. It's very simple.
Is that a good thing? Does it work for Dying Light?
I mean, it's less complicated, but it makes for combat that's a lot less interesting. I'm rolling to about hour 28 or 29
Wow,
of Dead
Jesus.
Island, and I am
You just
not.
said Dead Island.
Yeah, and I do this a lot. You'll find me doing this a lot. And it's because it is a lot like Dead Island. But I'm rolling into hour 28 or 29 Dying Light, and it's very similar play-wise, just moment to moment as it was when I started. And that's changing as I get some more tools. I got a grappling hook very recently, which you get from hitting a certain level of experience and picking a specific skill. It's not something that you get automatically.
Okay.
Which is strange to me because it really streamlines what is often a very sort of cumbersome, annoying open world exploration experience because there's no fast travel.
Right.
And it's a fairly large city to try to navigate around, and you can't just run around all the time because you'll get tired. But you'll see here that there's like an inventory and market system. I'm fairly far along, so you'll see I've got some purples, some perps. There are different tiers of weapons that dictate not just the damage that they do, but how many times they can be repaired, their durability, and also how many upgrades they can take. And I think a lot of that will be familiar to people who played Dead Island.
Yeah.
It's not really reinventing the wheel so much as it's trying to make a smoother wheel, I think.
I kind of want to hear more about how it stands apart from Dead Island, because I sort of remember the pitch being we're not gonna for all the neat things that Dead Island pulled off. I thought it had a pretty genuinely enjoyable, if not relatively straightforward co-op element to it. There were things about Dead Island I really liked, but obviously it had a lot of flaws, and I thought that this game was sort of pitched as, don't worry, we know what we did, we don't plan on making that same mistake twice. But you make it sound like that is kind of exactly what happened.
I mean, there's I don't know how many of Techland's games you played. Techland is the developer of Dead Island and also Dying Light. They also did the Call of Juarez games. There are different sort of tiers of Techland, and one of the things they're known for is jank, for lack of a better word.
Right,
There
sure.
is a screwed upness that is common to their games, like a goofiness of physics and functionality. And I think that is less prominent here than it has been in some of their other games. Here you see me taking on a mission to get across a giant gap in a bridge that was blown up to to contain a zombie outbreak.
Well, they should have thought of that ahead of time, shouldn't they have?
Yeah,
That's why bridges are there.
Yeah, well, they did, and you'll see how that went for them when I get to the bridge. So I think that it is more sophisticated in a lot of ways than Dead Island was, but I think there was a quirkiness to Dead Island that a lot of people liked, and in a lot of idiosyncrasies that attracted people in a sort of era of very AAA game sameness. And I think maybe a little bit of that's been lost here. Here you'll see that I'm in a safe zone, which is a spot where zombies can't get in.
Right, I could have figured that out with context clues.
Right, but it's almost night. So in this game, this is not a game where you want to wander around in the dark because, first of all, the game is it's really difficult to navigate around in the dark. And second of all, there are what are called volatile infected, which are, for all intents and purposes, the special infected of Dying Light. So I'm going to wait until morning before I go out on this mission, because otherwise it would be nearly impossible to get done what I need to do. But there are missions that have to take place at night, which I think are some of the weaker sort of parts of Dead Island, because it sort of violates.
You just did it again.
This is going to happen again and again. It's one of the weaker parts of Dying Light is that it spends a lot of time building this fiction and this reality, and then it sort of forces you to break it. And here I'm testing my grappling hook for the first time because I just got it. And hey, look at that. All of a sudden the game becomes much more convenient to navigate.
Yeah, sure. I mean, grappling hooks aside, how does the parkour handle on the scale? Obviously, it doesn't really look at like quite as sophisticated as like a Mirror's Edge or anything like that.
Right, and Mirror's Edge is the game that everybody sort of compares it to.
Well, it's just it's not a huge genre. Like
no, it's not, and it's nowhere near that level of sophistication. It's very rote. So here you'll see a gun, which is something that you don't use in Dead Island very much, because you'll see on the mini-map.
You just did it a third time in one video.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you.
Tell me the name of the game. Just say the right name of the game.
So in Dying Light, you don't want to use guns because if you watched in the upper right corner when I was firing, a sound thing goes out from around me. Like gunfire will draw zombies and quote special infected. Like there are virals is what they're called. They're people who have just turned, so they still have their mobility, and most of them are former runners, which is what you are in this game. You're a runner for this group of people that are stuck in the city. And there's a story there, but it's not very good, and I don't really want to spoil what's there. Sure. Which is why this video is a side mission as opposed to an in-game mission. So you'll see I'm crossing this bridge where there's a traffic jam.
This looks very dangerous.
Yeah, you don't want to go near the zombies because they will mess you up.
They're very slow in the daytime, right? Like they're pretty easy to parkour around?
Some are, but eventually you'll get into situations where, for various reasons, there are more than you thought there'd be, or there's somewhere you didn't think there'd be, and you're sort of trapped, and you've got to deal with them.
Yeah.
And so here you'll see me coming towards a major thing on the bridge. That's a skill that you can pick up, the ability to vault off of a zombie.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. Like, I actually think some of the skills that you pick up in the progression system of Dying Light are cool. They're fun to use, and they keep things interesting where otherwise they wouldn't be. I think the progression system is one of Dying Light's sort of saving graces. This is a viral, what I was talking about. The virals will climb up surfaces. They'll come after you.
Oh, jeez.
And I just chopped that guy right in the head. One thing I don't know if you've had an opportunity to notice yet, but you will, is that Dying Light is really, really graphically violent.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah.
And I understand that it's a zombie game. Like,
Yeah.
I get it. Like, zombies are an excuse to dismember people, but
I think it's like why the genre kind of exists.
To a degree, but even zombie movies like don't have nearly as much zombie gore as this game has. Like, the gore moments in a zombie movie are like the payoff moments. Here I am trying to figure out how the hell I'm going to get across this bridge because there's a giant hole in it. And I'm going to do something that anyone with fear of heights will get hives about. This is one of the scarier parts of this game for me, like much more so than the zombies, is that you have to do some really dumb, risky things involving heights and jumping and climbing. So
Oh
this is
shit.
happening. Yeah. And here you will see one of the problems with Dying Light, which is that it's really, really unclear what you can climb on and
Oh
grab.
no!
And
That was
there I
that was
go.
a pretty cool falling death, though. Wow, you lost some survivor points.
Yeah, which is experience. So you lose experience
Oh
for dying.
shit, that's some brutal like EverQuest shit.
But thankfully, it took me to the nearest safe house, which was a little higher up, which
Oh.
I've been here before for another mission. So I need to figure out how to get to a zip line to get across to the other side of the bridge.
This kind of
So-
looks neat. This like traversal puzzle idea, kind of looks cool. This seems like something that Dead Island definitely didn't have going for it.
Yeah, and I think that this is when the game is most interesting, when you're navigating its world as opposed to dealing with the zombies in it. And someone from another outlet pointed this out on Twitter, and I agree. This is Kevin at GameSpot, that it's a lot more interesting when there aren't zombies around, or when zombies aren't the main thing that you're worried about. And
Is
right
that,
about,
I mean, is that just because parkour games as a genre is characterized by, as far as I can remember, I'm sure there's others, but like basically a single game, while zombie games are, kind of a dime a dozen at this point.
I don't necessarily agree with that, because I think that there are games that make it interesting. I think State of Decay.
Oh, I'm definitely not saying that all zombie games are bad. I'm just saying it's easier for the game to be like a super, clever parkour game than it is like a revolutionary zombie game.
I just think the parkour is the least repetitive thing in the game. Like, seeing these spaces and navigating them as puzzle challenges is more interesting than decapitating the 50th zombie that you come across.
That seems like an awfully conservative estimate.
Oh yeah, I've got
No, Arthur.
I didn't die.
Just climb
I just
good.
goofed. But without the grappling hook, I would have been just swearing up a storm at this part of the game. Like, just it gets really, really hard in spots to navigate these areas. Also, I don't really know how to get down from places. Like, that's a challenge, and it never really explains it, which is sort of...
Are there not hay bales and shit on the floor level that you can jump into?
There are places you can jump to, scattered around the map, and like they're actually pretty clear. Like, bunches of trash bags like are things that you can land on and things like that.
That doesn't seem like it would cut it if you drop from like 20 stories.
I haven't tried dropping from 20
What's in
stories of
What's
the
in those
bag.
trash bags?
Uh,
Flubber?
Bean bags.
That
beanbags.
might work.
So here I find a way across. Like, I found my way. So
You
be
gotta do
prepared for a heart attack if you don't like heights.
You get nauseous and make you sick.
I could not do any of this. Like, I would be way more terrified of all of this than I am of the zombies, if this were a real thing. But I think other games have done interesting stuff with zombies and dealing with them, and I honestly feel like Dying Light doesn't do a lot of interesting things with its zombies. I think that they're a pain in the ass, and that there are sort of encounters that have sort of emergent problem solving, and you'll see me try to emergently problem solve here or there.
By running away from them?
Well, yeah, that, and I mean, you can craft items and tools to use.
Like what?
Like Molotov cocktails.
Oh.
Eventually you get the ability to build grenades, which are a double-edged sword, because grenades good, but sound bad.
Can you craft a double-edged sword at any point?
I don't know, actually. Maybe there might be a blueprint for that somewhere. Like, you find blueprints as you play through the game, and see, that's another volatile. But I got the ability to instant kill things that are either on the ground or coming up on a ledge that I'm above. Like, that's another ability that I took. Otherwise, I would be kicking that person all day.
Yeah, you really gave their head the business.
Yes, I did.
What did that surprise MFer blueprint do?
Adds...
You got it, and we didn't even address how...
It adds electrical damage and poison to a weapon.
Can you poison a zombie?
Apparently.
Okay.
But there are also human enemies in the game, and I just got hit from behind by a zombie. And he threw his police baton at me, so that was a good time. So you'll see here that there's a zombie in a hazmat suit, which is a zombie that I have to be really careful about dealing with, and unfortunately I was not as careful as I should have been. I hit the tank on his back, and he exploded.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
And now everybody, it's about to become a Zombo fiesta up in there?
Yeah, yeah, that noise attracts them, so I run away and have to rethink things a little bit. So up on top of the bus I go, and out come the Molotov cocktails. So yeah, I think that the emergent problem-solving aspects of the game are way more interesting than the combat in it. And parkour factors into that. That's using a med kit, which takes some time. There's a sort of Far Cry 3, Far Cry 4
Yeah,
vibe
I'm getting that, kind of.
to Dying Light that wasn't as present in Dead Island. I've seen people say that this is a very Ubisoft kind of game, and I don't think that that's the worst comparison that I've heard. I don't
nor do
think
I think it's the worst direction for the, for Techland to go in, because I feel like Ubisoft, especially with Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 4, have kind of like mastered this idea, right?
Yeah, I think that they have like these sort of open world games that share mechanics across each other, and I think that it works. I think that there are a lot of really interesting things happening in Dying Light that are unfortunately undercut a little bit by the monotony. Like, man, if this doesn't look interesting to you, that is a gigantic part of the game. Like, just wailing on zombies. Honestly, more than I think I expected going in, and early on, I really enjoyed avoiding the zombies, like, because I felt smart.
Yeah.
Like, you feel like you're outsmarting these, like, idiot monsters, and later you just can't. Like, you have to just take them on for a long period of time,
Yeah.
and the game suffers when you do. So yeah, I think that the zombie stuff can be the least interesting, even though I think that's sort of what they wanted to be the interesting part of their game, because you've got stuff like grenades, as an example, which I'll use right here because screw it, we're doing a video.
Is it a little bit more interesting at night when their deadliness factor is cranked up?
I think it's interesting at night because you absolutely cannot get into fights at night.
Or
Like,
else
you
you'll
can't.
get destroyed?
Yeah, because while you're swinging at one zombie, there could be like half a dozen behind you. And also,
You are giving these guys the business.
Yes, I am. Also, cars will explode if they're set on fire, so you need to be careful. I'm trying to clear off an area so I can get to another side of the bridge, and sort of. This is one of the things I like about Dying Light.
Yo, you were on such a good streak.
Such a good streak. Is that lots of other games, if you did what I just did, they'd kill you.
Yeah.
And the first time I did this in this game, I expected that it was going to kill me, and it didn't. It seems like such a minor thing, but the fact that Dying Light will let you jump off a bridge into water and swim to shore to get away from zombies.
That's a good lens effect too. Wow.
Yeah, it kind of elevates it.
Yeah, it's actually one of the better looking swimming effects I feel like I've ever seen.
So yeah, I feel like Dead Island.
Oops.
No, that was on purpose.
Okay.
Dead Island had a lot of sort of janky stuff, and it was a really sort of weird love it or hate it game. And I think that Dying Light is probably a lot less love it, but it's also a lot less hate it. I think that there's a lot more sort of well executed ideas happening in Dying Light than there were in Dead Island.
It definitely looks more solid. Anyway, this is Dying Light. Arthur, thank you for showing it to me. Good luck with your review, and keep it real.
I'm working on it.